muscles looked like he clenched, and then a couple seconds later would come down, and that happened twice.
Tonight, the man convicted of raping and murdering 23-year-old Lee Standifer was executed more than 37 years after her death. Her killer, David Earl Miller, died by electric chair.
Lee Standifer met 22-year-old David Miller in May 1981. He later confessed on tape to killing her. In 1982, a jury convicted Miller in her death and sentenced him to die by the electric chair.
The death sentence was overturned a couple of years later, and in 1987, a jury again said he should die.
Now, since then, his case has gone through every appeal. Miller was finally executed tonight and pronounced dead at 8:25. Witnesses say his final words were, "Beats being on death row."
WBIR 10 News anchor Brandon Bates has been covering the scheduled execution all day. Joining us now live from Nashville. Brandon.
Well, Robin and Beth, good evening to you. Just down the street from the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution, that is where David Earl Miller was executed by the electric chair earlier tonight. The official time of that was 8:25. As far as a timeline, what witnesses saw as they walked inside of this complex, witnesses say the blinds were raised in the chamber at 8:12. At 8:15, the electrical cable was connected to the electric chair. And then a minute later at 8:16, the first jolt of current was sent, and then a second was sent after that. At 8:22, they lowered the blinds. A voice announced the time of death. Again, was 8:25. One of those 7 media witnesses was our very own WBIR 10 News reporter, Mark Salinger. Mark, we went over the timeline a little bit, but let's talk about what it was like for you to be a witness in there. What did you see?
Well, Brandon, it was all very clinical. It was very by the books, as you would say. And you walked into the death chamber, into the electric chamber, or electric chair chamber where the electric chair was. And the first thing that we saw is that it was completely dark around us. At the time that you mentioned there, they raised the curtains, and immediately in front of us was David Earl Miller. He was already strapped into the chair. He was completely bald. There was not a piece of hair that could be seen on his body. And the warden asked him his last words. Of course, again, he said, "Beats being on death row." They had to ask him to restate that because he didn't really, you couldn't understand him the first time. We even had to confer with his lawyer, who was in the room with us, to make sure that that's what he was saying. But Brandon, it was all very clinical. It was all by the book, and it lasted really just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, and as witnesses said, just like yourself, when he tried to say his last words the first time or the second time, you couldn't really hear what he said. Some might believe that would be because of an emotional experience, but as you and other witnesses said, didn't really seem too emotional.
Yeah, I think it was more just mumbling, and that's how he talked at that point, and it wasn't anything that was restraining him or anything like that, although he was tied up in the restraints in the electric chair. He didn't really show any emotion throughout the entire process. In fact, he was completely emotionless. Even when he said his final words, there really wasn't any emotion in his voice throughout the entire time that we could see his face. He was staring straight ahead, not looking at anyone in particular or trying to mouth anybody like any words or anything like that. It all seemed very emotionless. And before they started pushing the electric current through his body, the warden put a big cloth in front of his face so that we were blocked from seeing his eyes or his face or anything like that.
Not a lot of people get to see something like this. How was it in there? Was it hard for everybody witnessing?
I mean, it's something profound to see somebody walking into a situation and that you know is not going to walk out. It's the difference between life and death, and tonight we saw that happen here at Riverbend.
All right, Mark Salinger, thank you very much. Well, when David Miller died in the electric chair in Nashville, the family of his victim, who is, of course, 23-year-old Lee Standifer, the family was not there, and his family was not present either. But Lee's mother, Helen Standifer, did agree to talk to us on the phone recently from her home in Arizona and sent these pictures of her. Doctors diagnosed Lee with diffuse brain damage when she was just a child, and with special education, she did graduate from Farragut High School. Helen Standifer says she wants the world to remember Lee's death, but also remember her life.
She was a very vibrant person and just didn't get a chance to see what her life would hold, what she could be and do.
Again, Stanifer's family did not attend that execution tonight. And David Earl Miller, he was on death row for 36 years, and his life ended in just some mere moments, just a couple of minutes. And that's something that has been a long time coming for many different people. Pronounced dead again at 8:25. Live from Nashville, we'll send things back to you.
All right, Brandon, thank you for the reporting. And before the execution, protesters gathered in downtown Knoxville to voice their opposition. The group believes the state of Tennessee should sentence death row inmates to life in prison instead of performing executions.
We don't think anyone has the right to take a life, and we do not wish the state to be doing it in our name.
Similar vigils also took place in Nashville, Memphis, and Cumberland County.
Right now online, you can find the dates for the upcoming executions. You can also read more about victim Lee Standifer and hear more of the interview with her mother. That is all at WBIR.com.
And now we want to turn to the